The nation's top intelligence official says the threat from Al-Qaeda is just as strong now as it was in the wake of 9/11. This is Special Report. Good evening, I'm Brett Baer. A shocking admission tonight from the Director of National Intelligence. James Clapper told a congressional hearing today he could not say the threat from Al-Qaeda, the Al-Qaeda movement, is any less than it was after the attacks of September 11th, 2001. This comes despite repeated assertions from President Obama and his team that core Al-Qaeda is decimated and on the run. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge has tonight's top story.
The testimony from the nation's most senior intelligence and counterterrorism officials was filled with one striking revelation after another.
How would you characterize the probability of an Al-Qaeda sponsored or inspired attack against the U.S. homeland today as compared to 2001?
I can't say that the threat is any less. I think that this dispersion and decentralization actually creates a different threat and a harder one to watch and detect.
While the Obama administration insists the Al-Qaeda leadership in Pakistan, known as the core, is on the path to defeat, witnesses testified that the Al-Qaeda ideology is taking hold, with new operations across the Middle East and North Africa.
The terrorist landscape has become increasingly complex.
There are some 5 different franchises at least, and in 12 countries. That this movement has morphed into.
Lawmakers were told that more than 26,000 extremists are now operating in Syria, and of that 7,000 are fighters from the West, with the potential to return to their home countries with new training and contacts.
How concerned should we be also about Europeans or even Americans training in Syria and traveling back to the West to carry out attacks?
Well, we should be very concerned about this, Senator Feinstein. Syria has become a huge magnet for extremists.
On the Sochi Olympics, the nation's top counterterrorism official warned about Islamic extremists who promised a year ago to disrupt the games.
The biggest issue from my perspective is not the games themselves, the venues themselves. The greater threat is to softer targets in the greater Sochi area and in the outskirts beyond Sochi, where there is a substantial potential for a terrorist attack.
The spread of Al-Qaeda's ideology comes as witnesses testified the NSA leaks are providing a roadmap for America's enemies.
The terrorists are becoming more sophisticated, and they're going to school on the repeated disclosures and leaks so that it has allowed them to burrow in and has made it much more difficult for us to find them and to address the threats that they pose.
Are there men and women in military uniform who are potentially in harm's way because of what this individual has done?
Senator, I believe there are.
To make the point that most of the Snowden documents were not about the privacy rights of Americans, one senator explained the scope of the theft.
We've heard the number 1.7 million documents are in many cases multi-pages. If you printed them all and stacked them, they would be more than 3 miles high.
But critics of the NSA programs are demanding more information on the surveillance of American citizens.
When will you give the American people an unclassified answer to that question that relates directly to their privacy?
As soon as we can. As soon, sir. I'll commit.
What would
to that.
be wrong with 30 days?
That's fine.
Based on Senator Wyden's persistent questioning, there appears to be another data collection program that impacts American citizens, which the Snowden leaks have not revealed. The most sensitive questions about the NSA leaker, his motives, and the status of the investigation were held for a classified session, Brett.
Okay, Catherine, thank you.
You're welcome.
President Obama is hitting the road this week to sell some of the ideas he mentioned in the State of the Union address last night, things like a new worker savings plan and higher minimum wage. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry tells us the plans are popular with some Democrats, but with others in tough Senate battles, not so much.
President Obama is back on the campaign trail, trying to keep Democrats in charge of the Senate with a State of the Union message so populist. At one stop today in Pennsylvania, he was insisting he's not engaging in class warfare.
Some people are going to earn more money than others. And we don't envy anybody who achieves success through their hard work.
At another stop in Maryland, the president visited a Costco, where he joked they sell everything from sofas to snorkel sets, not to mention lots and lots of phones and pens, which the president is vowing to use to sign executive orders on bread and butter Democratic issues, like making changes to the minimum wage and setting up a new retirement savings program.
Corporate profits, stock prices have all soared, but the wages and incomes of ordinary people haven't gone up in over a decade.
Except some vulnerable Senate Democrats are not buying in. Senator Mark Begich of Alaska said he was disappointed the president did not mention the Keystone XL pipeline and went light on specifics about the economy. Begich declaring, quote, "While the president delivered a lot of sound bites that may sound good in a speech, we need to hear a clear plan and commitment to economic growth." Specifically, the president missed his chance to talk about national energy security in any meaningful way. And Senator Mark Udall of Colorado, a state the president carried twice, was repeatedly asked by CNN if he wanted the president to campaign for him. And Udall repeatedly dodged.
We'll see what the president's schedule is. We'll see what my schedule is.
The president's allies, though, feel good that on health care, Republicans are largely shifting away from a repeal argument. And his vigorous defense of the law may rally Democrats. While on immigration reform, the president won applause from top Republicans by avoiding partisan attacks, which may help Speaker John Boehner and Eric Cantor craft a deal.
So let's get immigration reform done this year.
Yet Republicans are turned off by his threat of going around them on other issues, including today when the president slipped up and claimed he was signing a bill passed by Congress when really it was an executive order.
And now I'm going to sign this bill. Thank you. God bless you. God bless the United States of America.
He was signing a new plan known as MIRAs that will allow people who don't have 401ks to save some money. Investment advisors today said it's good if it can give people a start, but there are severe limits, in part because it never went through Congress and it's just an executive order. Doesn't have the full force of law, Brett.
Ed Henry live on the North Lawn. Ed, thank you. The man who ran the IRS following last year's conservative targeting scandal has left the agency. Daniel Werfel's departure coincides with the information of and the confirmation of new IRS Chief John Koskinen. Werfel launched an internal investigation after word that the IRS was using enhanced scrutiny to deal with the tax-exempt status of conservative organizations. Now back to the State of the Union. President Obama talked up his namesake health care plan, but not that much, and in less than glowing terms. Chief National Correspondent Jim Engel has a fact check on what the president did say about Obamacare and unemployment.
The president didn't exactly brag about his signature health care legislation after all its problems. In fact, he didn't even mention it until more than halfway through. He finally raised it by pointing to a guest who'd signed up just days before needing emergency surgery, noting the health care system is broken.
In case you haven't heard, we're in the process of fixing that. More than 9 million Americans have signed up for private health insurance or Medicaid coverage.
Of the 9 million, 3 million have signed up for insurance, while 6 million have signed up for Medicaid, health care for the poor, which is free to the individual. Though the president promised people they could keep their plans if they liked them, twice as many people had their policies canceled than have signed up for new ones. And no one knows who they are.
6 million policies got canceled, and we don't know whether people who didn't have policies are signing up or people who had their policies canceled are signing up.
And on Medicaid, the administration can't say if those signing up were already eligible or newly eligible in states that expanded the program. That means a lot to state budgets because Washington will temporarily pay 100% of new enrollees but give no extra money to the others. In addition, even the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office says the president's plan will not cover all the uninsured, even after full implementation.
The majority of uninsured will still be uninsured. There'll be 30 million people without health insurance.
When it came to the economy, polls show an overwhelming lack of confidence, so the president stretched to make it sound good.
The lowest unemployment rate in over 5 years, a rebounding housing market.
The unemployment rate is down, but mainly because it doesn't count people who simply stopped looking because they couldn't find a job.
We've seen a vast departure of workers from the labor force. They've just given up. The number of Americans working now is lower than before the recession. The fraction of the population that's working now is lower than before the recession.
So the job situation isn't as good as the president makes it sound, no matter what the unemployment rate is. Brett?
Jim, thank you. Up next, Republicans respond to the president's push regarding income inequality. But first, here's what some of our Fox affiliates across the country are covering tonight. Fox 5 in New York on the massive security operation surrounding Super Bowl 48 across the Hudson in New Jersey. The NYPD is using extra officers, bomb-sniffing dogs, and surveillance cameras to watch for trouble this week along the Super Bowl Boulevard Street Fair in Manhattan. Fox 32 in Chicago with football players from Northwestern University seeking to form a union. The players want to be recognized as university employees so they can negotiate compensation and benefits. And this is a live look at Atlanta from Fox 5 doing the cleanup there. The big story there tonight, the deep southern freeze that left several people dead and thousands stranded in cars, buses, schools, strangers' homes for multiple hours. Traffic on major interstates was paralyzed. Georgia's governor has called in the National Guard there to help. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.